Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 23. In this episode, I speak with writer, musician, and actor Chris Clarke. Chris recently wrote a book, which is our book of the episode, called Smooth Sailing for Hard Rocks. This book blew me away. I'm already on my second read. I knew it would be high quality because anything Chris does is very high quality, but he nailed it. He completely nailed it. It's a great guide to give you practical knowledge and perspective navigating life. And he has many different scenarios and situations and things that usually don't get talked about but happen every single day. He just gives you some perspective on maybe how you may handle some things or think about things differently before making certain decisions. He really did an amazing job, and this is going to be a book I'm going to continue to read and reread over and over again, as I put it with a lot of great spiritual and self-development books I've read. So, Smooth Sailing for Hard Rocks by Chris Clarke. And without further ado, here's my conversation with Chris. Chris Clarke, welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast.
My man, thanks for having me, Sam.
This is it's been a long time coming, and we didn't even know it was coming, but here we are.
Here we are. I'm excited.
Really excited about this episode, man, and I'm going to plug it right off the bat. You wrote a book. It's phenomenal. It's called Smooth Sailing for Hard Rocks. I don't know if people can see with the light there. It's already, I'll say it's the book of the episode. And you really blew me away, man. Like, you really blew me away. I knew it was going to be very good quality because you put out very high quality work. But, I mean, a couple chapters in, I'm like, whoa, this is doing things to my brain and my mind and making me think about life and going back and visiting all these past experiences. I mean, I put it up there with books like the Bhagavad Gita and other spiritual texts that I've read over this past year. I just went on a huge spiritual spree in self-development.
And it's an honor, bro, to be compared to that caliber of work, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So before we get into the book, I thought maybe we would just start. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to writing this book.
All right. Well, I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, and always been in the arts. Come from a artistic family, and blessed to experience a lot of travel and a lot of different cultures and perspectives and all kinds of colorful characters and ways of looking at things. And I've always been the type of person that liked different things that maybe usually people that would like one thing I liked wouldn't like the other thing I liked. I've always just been kind of that type of person. And so I just would always kind of keep what I felt were the I don't want to just say the highlights, but the certain jewels, I should say, of certain things. I just would kind of keep them, dear to my heart and remind myself of them. I'm one of those people, I like to revisit the master works, and I like to revisit the things that to me are like great sources of inspiration and energy. I go back to them a lot, and I feel like that's one of the things that kind of makes me who I am, because they say don't forget where you come from. I also believe you don't want to forget what you what you come from, like inspirationally. You know what I mean? Like rewatch those old movies, revisit those old works, those old passages in those old songs, and just I'm always familiarizing myself and building on that foundation. So that's just something that is why a lot of this, like I mentioned the movie The Godfather in my book several times, because I've been watching it since it's literally my oldest memory as a child is watching my father watch The Godfather. It's my oldest memory. I remember being little and watching my father, and I remember looking at him, looking at the screen, and I'm thinking to myself in the screen, I'm like, what is this boring brown shit he's looking at? Because, the all these guys are wearing these dark suits and these dark rooms and brown tables, and they're just talking. So as a child, you're gravitated toward bright, sparkly, zany things. So now I watch the movie as often as possible. But anyways, I know I'm just rambling, but I've always been a person to just kind of stay familiarizing myself with the stuff that inspires me. And I feel like this book is me expressing kind of all the wisdom, at least for the most part, that I've absorbed and built upon and developed myself into what I felt was the most relative for the people that I had in mind when I wrote it.
And if I could,
I kind of answered your question, and then
no, it makes perfect sense. And just to touch on LA real quick, because you were born and raised out here, right?
Yes, sir.
And
West LA.
me living in LA for about 4 years, that's one thing I recognize right off the bat is like, man, it's just what I love about this place is it's such a diversity of people, different cultures, different languages. I mean, you can literally go from one neighborhood to the next and the languages switch, and I thought that was really cool. So you're just exposed to so much out here. So you growing up out here, like just around so much, I can't help but think that might have influenced you or given you the perspective to be able to write something like this. Because this is a book written by an open-minded person. You can't be an open-minded person, or you can't be a closed-minded person and write a book like you wrote. So did growing up in Los Angeles, that definitely
100%. And I was a person who was fortunate I grew up in Los Angeles, and, I'm a first generation Los Angelino. Pretty much everybody in my family is from Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. So East Coasters who had me. So, and Philadelphia is a very, working class town. So my experience of LA is also, I have the perspective of people that came to LA in their late 20s and, it had me. And so my whole family not being from LA gives me other perspectives. And then also my family, and a lot of close family friends and associates, a lot of world travelers and artists, people so I've always had, like, I'm from LA, but I don't have a typical LA experience. Not saying that's bad or not saying that's good. I'm just saying my particular experience is unique in that regard. So I feel like I have that essence, LA gumbo kind of, because LA is a melting pot. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, my personal, background is a melting pot. I'm mixed. So then I have that, what I mean? But yeah, LA itself is, there's no city like it. And, this is where people come to chase their dreams. This is where people that have made their dreams come true come to enjoy their dreams. And there's no city like it in the world. And it's a blessing to be here. And people that are here that understand how fortunate they are to be here, usually do right by the city. Some people, they don't, and they like to talk stuff about the city. I don't do that. I love my city. But, no city's perfect, but LA would definitely give you a unique perspective. And especially if you're fortunate, like I was, to have a unique experience within a unique place, and know a lot of unique people. So I've been blessed, and I paid attention. I've always been a person to pay attention. I like to speak. I like to ask questions. I'm very inquisitive, and I'm very passionate, enthusiastic about what makes people fresh and what makes people effective at what they do, and why people feel how they feel, and what things that people do that they're unaware that they do, how that affects people. Like when I was younger, I was a person that was very extremely like just very sensitive to what people were feeling and things like that. My own feelings. I'm a Virgo. So certain things that I was like very aware of that a lot of other people weren't aware of, they allowed me, like as I got older and matured and I could really begin to master them, they gave me insight that not everybody has. You know, we're all different. I mean, we're all so different, but some of us are like this and we don't see anything else. I've always been a person that always sees a lot of things. I had to learn how to be more like this. I was always like this with my art, but in other ways, I've always been just very aware of how things affected people around me and how they affected me. And that benefited me in the authoring of a book like this, because this book is about so much of this book is about dealing with people. And no matter where you are, dealing with people is a huge thing, but particularly in a major metropolis, you know what I mean? You really have to know who you're dealing with. And then, you know, in a city like LA that's, you know, has so much, you know, the entertainment industry, which I'm a part of, and things like that, you really have to understand how your actions, you know, the results of your action, how you treat people. You're talking to somebody today, and 2 years from now, this person could be the head of some things you're trying to be a part of. So you have to understand how to, you know, how your actions affect others and just be mindful of those things. So.
Just really quick on that. No, that's fascinating. Now, is that something, a quality of you that just naturally you went that way, or is there something that led you to be that way? You know, having, you know what I mean? Like,
I think with me personally, like I said, I was kind of like, I was not beating around the bush, but I was like, when I was younger, I was just very like ultra sensitive about a lot of things. Like I'm completely at peace with it now, and I can say it like that. I was very sensitive about a lot of things. And so, and I'm a Virgo, like, you know, this is part of our traits, but I've always been, you know, an intellectual, always been a thinker. So I just thought a lot. I would just think about things. I wonder if does that mean, I would, it's just kind of like my natural, the way I was wired. And those kind of things, you know, when you're young, you know, it's like what could be a so-called weakness could be your superpower if you learn how to use it. And when you're young, certain things like that, you know, no one wants to be, nobody in general, but no boy wants to be thought of as being very sensitive, and because it's perceived as weak. And when you get older, at least for me, I should say, when I got older, like I started to understand that like I just had an above average awareness of like the dynamics of things pertaining to like emotion and people's feelings, and, you know, lines of how things affect people. And I just, when I was young, it was too much to deal with. And I was just like, you know, and then, you know, just, we all have insecurities, little insecurities you have when you're young. So just trying to figure things out. But as I got older, it's like that awareness is like, people come to me for advice now. You know, people have been coming to me for advice for a long time. So this book is in a lot of ways a reaction and a response and a logical progression of people coming to me for advice, because I care, because that's really what it is. Like, I give a shit. You know what I mean? It's not that I'm just forced to like be aware of these things. Like, I care. You know, I don't want to offend somebody needlessly. Some people don't care about that. I care. If me taking one step backwards to say, you know what, hey, I hope you didn't take that the wrong way, is going to save this person some anguish, I'll do that. You know, every day you hear a million people say, I ain't got time, what other people think about, you know, worry what other people think about. And that's fine, respect to them. I care. I can't care about what everybody thinks, and I can't, you know, fix what everybody thinks, but sometimes it's a nice thing to, you know, as long as you don't put yourself out, you know what I mean, and put yourself in the back, which when I was younger, I did that. But once, like I said, once you get to an age where you understand how to like not do too much, that's when those things, it's like you have to learn that. That's why I say it's almost like a superpower. It's like the X-Men and all that stuff. They had these powers. They have to learn how to use it because at first they're blowing shit up and they're wrecking things.
You gotta have Professor X. Professor X.
You know what I mean? Like you know, it's like even in the realms of romance. You know, I'm a loving, affectionate cat, and I've, you know, when I was, you know, new to it, I, you know, scared some girls off because they were not used to, you know, I'm articulate. I could speak. I'm a writer. So I would, you know, I just want you to not feel like this. And then goes, you know, because they're not used to that. So, you know, once you get, you know, maybe it took me a little longer with that than the other stuff, but once, and there's always people that are trigger, you know, like they get startled and run off because they're just afraid of any kind of whatever. But that's, you can't, you know, you can't base your romantic instincts and how you're going to move based off what somebody may or may not be ready for. Or you're not, you know, to thine own self be true. You got to be true to yourself, but you have to keep, to a degree, keep a leash on it. You can't just be completely at all times. When I first saw you, I knew I wanted you to be my girlfriend. You know, you can't, like, you know.
I'm relating all too well right now, by the way. I'm relating to you all too well right now, by the way.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's an interesting thing, and it's just it's a balance, and it doesn't stop, because as you know, and I know, like, what works for one situation doesn't work for the next situation. And I've made the mistake in romantic as well as other things, business, with other things. You try something over here, it doesn't work, and you're told that the other way would work. The next opportunity you get, you go super hard in the other direction, and then that person's like, no, I wanted it like that. So you have to, it's you know, you don't necessarily know, all you can hope for is the ability to read the signs, engage the temperature sooner before you play yourself out of position. And that's what, you know, the intention of my book is. That's why I said in the preface, I said, this book is like a collection of tactics, or almost like chess strategies. And I say a master chess player could know all the strategies under the sun, but that doesn't say which one's going to work. You have to look at the board, measure the field, et cetera, and know when to apply what. And that's really the game. It's like knowing how to fight. If you could know all the moves, but you got to know when to duck, you got to know when to fold, know when to walk away, like, you know, when to, you know, it's all about knowing when the moves, because an excellent move is only excellent because of its timing. And it being applied at the right time. Other than that, it's just a move. You know, going like this, I'm just going like this. But if you put a basketball in my hand and the rim, and it says 3, 2, and I win the buzzer beater, and then, you know, it's all context. So, anyways, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's like we were talking beforehand. And again, I'm trying to articulate it as best possible. It's like this book is like a guide for someone, a playbook almost. And to your point too, it's like you can know all the moves, but they're nothing without the proper execution, like execution and timing. But this, I feel, was a really good guide of a lot of life situations people are going to be in, and a lot of things that slip between the cracks of everyday life stuff that not too many people think to even discuss, because they don't even think about it. Like, they don't even think that they don't even know it exists, pretty much.
Right.
For example, in this book, you had mentioned in a chapter about, you know, always ask permission when you're over at someone else's place. You know, if you go to someone's place and you just dump a bunch of trash in their trash can that you brought in from your car or something like that.
Right.
You put up like, hey, like, you don't know that trash can's used for that type of trash. You don't know if they don't throw certain types of things away. You just don't know that. And to some people, they're not going to, well, what do you mean it's a trash can? But it's like, you're coming into someone else's house, and it's respect. It's laying a foundation, and by having that conversation and asking permission, and the trash is just one example. I mean, this can be many different things. Right. It's like stuff like that, like stuff that a lot of people are never even going to think of. I'm like, yeah, he's right. So I really liked that aspect of the book, and I really feel it really teaches you to remove a lot of your ego, a lot of your pride, and also to have a lot of empathy toward other human beings, which, telling us what you've told us so far, makes a lot of sense, you writing this. And so I guess I'm leading to the question. I believe you started in 2015 to write this book.
Yes, sir.
What led you to writing it? I know you had these ideas and this is how you thought, but what was that moment where you're like, oh, I'm going to write this book. It's called Smooth Sailing for Hard Rocks.
I'll tell you, I don't remember when I came with the title. That I don't remember. But I remember I was in a health food store and I was talking to a guy, and he had on a mesh shirt, sleeveless mesh V-neck, probably cut a little above his belly, something like that. This is when the man bun was heavy. He had the Superman bun. He had on the Yogi MC Hammer pants and some sandals on, right? And he was just looking very, very earthy. And I'm talking to him, right? And the reason why I'm describing his outfit is because some dudes that I knew walked through, and they normally would come up to me and, be like, what's up? And remember this dude, two of them looked at the guy I was talking to, like, and then gave me this look like, you talking to this guy? And they were like, yo, kind of like, I'll see you later kind of vibe. And I thought to myself, I said, man, they not going to come talk to me because they think this dude looks weird. And I'm like, meanwhile, this dude is dropping super science right now. Like, they would love to hear what because it's some health related stuff, and they're fitness guys too, and they could really benefit from his breadth of knowledge. So I'm sitting there like, and the guy's still talking as he didn't see them. And I'm just like, wow. And I just thought about it. I was like, it's amazing how many people will see somebody and just not really want to talk to them because of the way they look, particularly, there's a certain kind of guy, they see certain kind of dudes and they just like, I'm not really. So I've always been one of those individuals I'm kind of like an intersectional person. I just know a lot of different walks of life, and from, highbrow, super intellectual people to very like, just the most round way, meathead, fun-loving dudes that are just, so man, shit, ain't nothing wrong. Yeah. So I've always just been one of those kind of people because I see the gold in all of them. I see what's there. So I realized, and I was like, damn, like I should. And at the time, I was doing a good amount of reading, and I was like, man, and the thing with me is the different types of things I read and the different types of things that I study. Like, I could be watching a monk debate or a TED talk, or I could be over here studying like some New York project, like history and the politics of the way they deal with each other and crossing the bridge, and like just this different. There's science there. Like, it's just I see the science and the politics and the language and all the like the nuances that just the good stuff. So I realized that I could be listening to I could be deep listening to some Wu-Tang, or I could be reading the Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien, but having deep dives into both of that stuff and the respective brilliance of language and concepts and where it takes your mind. So I've always kind of been that type of person. So I realized, I said, man, I need to kind of like, because there's wisdom in all that. There's wisdom that some dudes from Brownsville have, and then there's some wisdom that some dudes from Cambridge have. And, you know, he who has it all has it all. So I was kind of like, I'm going to put everything that I have learned, but develop my own, you know, addition to this, you know, to this collection of stuff and my own thoughts. That's why it took me a long time to, you know, really to actually complete it, because I said, I don't want to just be repeating, you know, and regurgitating other people's thoughts, you know what I mean? So it took me a while to like really write enough stuff that I felt was uniquely my own. And yeah, so that was kind of where it come from. Just basically recognizing that I'm a person who crosses a lot of like, you know, places where other people don't, because I would find myself having conversations with people and say, like, I'll give you an example, a quote that I tell people all the time. And it's really, I enjoy, I really enjoy, like I love when I can share a quote with somebody from a world that I know is not their world. Like, meaning, if you and I both read J.R.R. Tolkien, for example, right? I just mentioned him, and I give you a quote from one of his books, great. But if I give you a quote from a world that you're unfamiliar with, I find more pleasure because I'm introducing you to a world you might not know about. So if I'm talking to a guy who's, let's say, is a hip hop dude who doesn't really go into that world, and I say, you know, just to use a quote that everybody knows, not all who wander are lost. He's like, wow, that's deep. He's not, you know, he may have, I mean, even though that's from Lord of the Rings, he may have seen that, but you get my point. Like, yeah, a quote that's from, okay. In the same way, if I'm talking to a professor and I was to say, in the words of the great LL Cool J, the greatest mistake you can make is one made out of kindness. And LL Cool J said that if you don't know any better, then you can be like, well, I didn't know any better. But if you make a mistake trying to be kind to somebody, but you know better, you're like, fuck is wrong with me? Why did I do that? So if I'm saying it to somebody who's never listened to an LL Cool J song, I feel a little more accomplished because I'm, one, bringing them something they don't know, but simultaneously I'm bringing some praise and some more esteem to that world to which they might have a limited. Like, I used to love quoting to people. There's a great rapper named MF Doom, and he has this line where he says, only in America could you find a way to earn a healthy buck and still keep your mind on self-destruct. It's like, forget about music. Only in America could you find a way to earn a healthy buck and still keep your mind on self-destruct. That's a brilliant concept, regardless of music, let alone it's rap music with profanity and whatever they want to say it. So I would always enjoy bringing that line to the attention of people who think all we do is rap about whatever they think we rap about. So anyways, that's just one of the things that I've really taken on since a young age, is I enjoy sharing wisdom from places with people that they normally don't look in that direction.
That's dope. And side note, I love MF Doom, by the way. I'm glad you used that example. Yeah, MF Doom, man, he's incredible.
Sure.
Yeah, as you're explaining all this, I mean, it's really, you're really breaking down all the barriers, knocking down walls, if you will, because we live in a society of division, to say the least, of so many things that, like, you know, you gave the example of the guy you were talking to in the health food store, your friends. immediately saw him, judged that book by the cover, stereotyped whatever that is. And, oh, well, that type of person is like this, so we want nothing to do with that. Where it's just, I don't know. I really like how, you're taking the gems of humankind that we all can benefit from.
Right.
And you're kind of being that bridge, I almost feel. Like, it's like, hey, there's good stuff to be said over here, and there's good stuff to be said over here. You both need to check it out, but so many people won't even give it a thought for whatever reason. Like,
yeah, my favorite quote is Bruce Lee. Like, I tell people my favorite quote is not at all poetic. People usually say my favorite quote and they go something that has poetry, and I'm a poet, you know what I mean? But my favorite quote is just the functionality, just the usefulness, the utility of this quote is just amazing. Bruce Lee said, absorb what is meaningful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own. And I say we should look at everything like that. I mean, if somebody teaches me a recipe, how to cook something, I might have to omit an ingredient or two because it might not go well with me, and I might add my own little thing. If somebody tells me, I mean, even religions, with all due respect, most religions have something that's wrong with them. You know what I mean? So there's something that you could, if you have a certain degree of open-mindedness and thinking, you'd say, well, I might not deal with that particular, that applied, 2,000 years ago or 1,500, whatever years ago. So certain things you have to be able to look at and take what you resonate, and not just take, but accept what, resonates with you. And then certain things say, no, I don't really need to incorporate that in my life, but let me add my own interpretation. Let me add my own, to it. And I feel like that's an important thing. So that's kind of how I live my life, without trampling over anything. That I'm not trying to act like I know better than things that have been around longer than, but you know what I mean? Like certain things you just have to, you have to be courageous enough to be honest with certain things that need to be improved.
100%. I'll just throw a quick example from my own life to what you just said. Like, I grew up in the church, for example, and I hit that age where I'm like, okay, religion is blah blah blah. I don't necessarily. I'm going to go a different way, yada yada yada. And then I found other spiritual books and other things, Bhagavad Gita, all these other things. But then I circled back to the Bible and like the New Testament with Jesus, right? And then I'm reading it and I'm like, wait a minute. Like, Jesus is actually a dope dude. I'm just like, the things he's saying, I'm like, wow, like this is like really profound right now. But it took me to be like, hey, let me take another look at this without me worrying about the structure of man-made religion and all this stuff. Just speaking for myself, of course. But it's like, 100%. It's like, it was really eye-opening to be like, okay, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater with everything. And you cover that in your book when you talk about, if you're talking with someone and maybe they say one thing that's kind of like, I don't think that's really true, or that just sounds crazy, but maybe the other 95% of what they're saying is spot on.
Right.
So, man, it's really, I guess it's coming to me how to describe your book more and more. It's just like, it really, like you're teaching almost discipline too, in a way. Like you're teaching, you got to be disciplined. Like you got to be disciplined and you got to have patience. Because a lot of people they're programmed. They're programmed as soon as this happens, this is what I do. I flip out or I discount this. But this is like, now hold on. Let me just sit here. Let me listen to what this person's saying. Let me hear what they have to say,
It's amazing. I didn't think about it from the discipline. Yeah, from a discipline standpoint, you're right, because it's interesting because discipline, people sometimes take it and they just think discipline just means to not have another piece of cake or to work out an extra hour. But there's discipline to actually take the time to really think about something. You have to discipline your mind to be like, hold on. Don't go there so quick, because it's easy and it's familiar to go there. It's like, you know, you'll watch people sometimes when they get into arguments, like it could be somebody you argue with, but it's usually better when you see it clear when you watch two other people get into an argument and you see one person is overreacting and then they've hit the, like, for lack of a better term, the fight or flight, the confrontational mode is arised. And then a person's like, no, listen to what I'm saying. And then now they're in this mode. And it's like, he just said, listen to what he's saying. Like, imagine if you just tried listening to what he's saying, not thinking, and I mean, man, countless people are dead in jail, walking around miserable because they just didn't have the ability to check themselves. And, you know, emotion is such a crazy thing, and people get lost in that, you know, constantly. So I'm big on that, like making sure you take the time to think about things, like you said, not let your ego and your pride and your mechanisms and your loop mode of how you respond to things, you know, take you out of the game. Because so many people, you know, like I said in the preface too, I said, I've seen so many times where all a person had to do was just be like, you know what, man, I was tripping, or you know what, just the slightest thing, or by the way, man, we're good, right? Like just something simple, and it would just diffuse something that ended up going so far in all types of categories. People walking away from, like, you know, fortunes over shit like that. It's crazy. And you just say, man, all we have to do is just be a little bit more mindful of how we behave, you know?
You reminded me of a quote. Most people don't listen. They're just waiting for their turn to talk. You know what I mean? Like I think they told me that in acting school, Meisner training, but like it's
super
actually
real.
Listen to that person instead of, but most people are like, just hearing noise, I'm like, I'm totally going to say this whenever they're done moving those lips and sounds coming out. Like they're not listening to one word that person's saying.
For real. Or they're in a context like that, they're tracking the words being said, like, exactly. So blah, 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 blah. And it's the funniest thing. That's why I really enjoy the concept of, like, when you're having a disagreement with somebody, to have a person, they have to like, if you say something to them, you express a concern to them, they have to express it back to you to show that they even understood it. Like if I said, man, Sam, I'm angry with you because you wore the better shirt of the two of us for this show, and I'm just feeling like my shirt is inadequate. You have to be able to say, well, your problem with me is that you really are unhappy with me because I chose the better shirt, and it's bothering you because you're feeling it. Like you have to repeat what a person said because you wore the better shirt. You know what I mean? So that being said, it's like one of those things where people don't realize, like, they're not even processing what it's like. You're arguing with somebody and you I know you've experienced this because you're a smart guy. You lay the most brilliant, perfectly logical thing. 2 + 2 is 4. It will always be 4. Here's 4 of them. And then they don't even, like, it's like it doesn't even matter. They want to argue. And it's like, damn, well, then what am I even doing here? Because I could say gaga goo goo, you're still gonna say the same shit. So why am I even, you know?
Chris Tucker had it right when he said, "You understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?" Like to some people, it's like you're not hearing me. Like you're not taking the time. You're not processing what I'm saying because you're so driven by your emotion and your ideologies and your programming. It doesn't, like you just said, you can say Google got anything.
Right.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
And that is the opposite of smooth sailing for hard rocks, because it's funny because the essence too of the book is funny. Like there's a lot of funny like side conversations with people I know. Like, obviously life isn't always about things being easy, and somebody brought up the point, well, what about, they say still waters never made a good sailor. It's like, okay, right. But here's the thing. You navigate the difficult waters so you can sail through them to nice, still waters. You don't want to be spending your whole damn life dealing with the Moby Dick, Captain Ahab storms, your whole life getting smacked on the side of roads, and Frankenstein on the side of the ice thing with you want to have some cool moments. You want to get off the boat, walk through the port, have something to drink, meet somebody, cuddle up, put on some, you want to get, there's going to be other storms, but you want to have nice moments. And so it's not about life is always going to be smooth. It's about having smooth times when you can and enjoying them, because also it's like, it's not just, because a lot of, people, it's very cool and it's very like trendy to just be like pro grind. It's grind. It's grind. It's like, yeah, but like you gotta, come home and have, a meal with your mother sometimes. You gotta like chill, get everything ain't about grind and you gotta have friends. You gotta have, good moments of balance. Life is about balance. So I figured I wanted to write something for that. And so going back to the point we're just making, if you're always misunderstanding people and you're not being understood yourself, and you're always at odds with people, I got a friend who recently hit me, and it was beautiful, man. It touched me. Like, he was just like, man, I've just been arguing with my mother a lot. And it was basically based around, he's a good dude. And he was basically saying that at the end of the day, he's a very fact checker kind of guy. And with everything from 2020 to now, all the various things that people have had differences of, he was just basically saying his mother was throwing some bones into some conversations without exactly having her information on hand. And he called her out a couple of times, and because it's just his nature, because he's kind of become that guy. And it just got under her skin, and they were having some difficulty. And he knew that it wasn't right. And I just told him, I said, look, man, she just, some people, they just want to be a part of a conversation, and they're not as passionate about the subject, whether you're talking about movies or music or sports or whatever, or world, 2020, all, pandemic, all the, Black Lives Matter, police, all the stuff, politics, all the stuff that people have been, at odds about. It's like some people just want to contribute. And I told him, I said, it's your mom's, like those other people, you want to call them out. But I'm like, your mom's, if it makes you unhappy that you and her are having difficulties, then don't call your mom out. Call everybody else out. But mom, just let her have fun. Let her say her thing. And he was like, damn, you're right. He's like, I wasn't even looking at it like that. I was just, I've kind of become this prove it kind of person. Prove what you're saying. And he's like, you're right. I shouldn't really put my mom through that because it's mom's. I'm like, yeah, it's your mom's. You know what I mean? Like, just let her, she's participating. It's really not that serious. It's like me being an expert of rap. I know guys that want to talk about rap, and I could just sit there and just completely dismantle their whole shit. But why? He let him say what he thinks. And it's just like, okay, that's how you feel. And you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't offend me to hear that you think somebody that whatever, you know what I mean? So I think those kind of things, that's a part of smooth sailing, because you can snipe every bird off your, wow, what a metaphor. I was like, you could snipe every bird off your fence, and pretty soon there's no, you know what I mean? You gotta let some shit be, and let just the birds chirp, and let things just happen.
I think I'm just going to start throwing, because the more we're having this discussion and I'm getting your insights into this, the more like my experience reading it, words are popping out of a way to describe it.
Like, and jump in, man. Interrupt me. I know I'm long-winded.
No. Yeah, I'm just soaking it all in. But this book too. I feel it's pick and choose your battles. Pick and choose your battles. Some days, yes, you go to war. There's some stuff that, all right, that's not good. Something needs to be said.
Right.
But then most stuff, though, it doesn't. It really doesn't. And the more like you can sink into that, again, it's a playbook to use that to your advantage. I think it's the Tao Te Ching, another classic. Those who say don't know. I just totally.
And those who know don't say.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Thank you. But it's like, let that person have their moment. Let them have their moment, because why even, especially now, especially like there's sometimes too, like I've just recognized, like I like you said earlier, it doesn't matter if I come with an encyclopedia of proof of everything to validate my point. It's not going to be read. It's not going to be taken seriously. So do I really want to put my energy into just saying, aha, got you. Right. And then what? What, my ego to prove that I'm quote unquote right?
Right.
Let them talk, and more than likely they'll fizzle out, and you guys will end up doing something else and talking about something else, and it's over.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because like he says, to choose your battle. Like you'll have certain people that it's really important to you that they know certain things, and then when you approach the subject, you know, their attentiveness to it will determine how much more you go. Like if you're trying to tell somebody something, they're like, yeah, really? Okay, yeah, that's what's up. Okay. Then you just hit them with the boom, boom, boom. But if they're like, really? You say, well, yeah. And then they're like, that's fascinating. And you say, oh, okay, well, and then you give them the full deal. And that's like, it's like gauging those things, because there is only so much time and there's only so much energy, and it sure is a pain in the ass when you go out of your way trying to, like, don't cast pearls before swine. And the funny thing about that too is, like, it's amazing, all those sayings, like those heavy sayings, like stories in the great religious works. You have to draw the point, the moral from the story. It's not to say that every single person that knows doesn't say. And it's not to say that every person that says doesn't know. It's saying, it's hinting at something. It's making a point, and you have to be able to read between, through, and around those lines and understand. So when you're seeing somebody that's pontificating, but it's a little thin, versus somebody over here that's just giving you little blips, but they're not really flushing it out for you. They're the one that really knows. It's the same way casting pearls before swine. It's like, not everybody that's not ready for something is swine. Some people are just not ready, and you have to treat them like in the Kabbalion. I believe it says the ears of the lips of wisdom stay sealed until the ears of, I always mess this quote up, man. Like the ears, basically something about the lips of wisdom stay sealed until the ears of something.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Like it has to be like, you can be saying something to somebody that's not, and sometimes it's fun. We won't lie, sometimes it's fun, but you have to, like I said, choose your balance, choose your battles.
When you remind me of a point I've been making to some people, because a lot of this stuff I've been reading over this past couple of years, especially this past year, I'm like, man, if I only would have read this when I was like 20. But then at the same time, it's like, I wouldn't have comprehended it. I wouldn't have understood it. You have to go through stuff. Same with this book, man. Even if I would have read this at 18, 20, yeah, it definitely would have given me a heads up to some things. But having life experience reading it, it's like, Oh, I know exactly what he's talking about. Like you have to go through certain things sometimes before, like you said, you're ready to hear that message.
And that's what I was starting to hint at way earlier when like one of the first, it's so funny for the first things you asked me, and I just went like, it's always fascinating to see the way the mind leaps where it wants to leap. But when I mentioned about things that I go back to, it's like something like The Godfather. I always reference The Godfather, and I mention it 5 times in the book because it's like, you know, I watch it at least once a year, and I always absorb and catch new things because it's so rich.
Yeah.
And the things that are really just rich, it's like this. It's like, okay, your understanding of things that grow, like your understanding of things in general grows, so you can see things better. So it's like a person, it's like a child. No, okay, it's like a teenager whose parents split up, and they have a view of it because they don't understand man and women business. They don't understand it. So a lot of children, you know, falsely vilify one or both of their parents. They get a little older, they start going through some things, they start to begin, but once they get into the real shit, they're like, damn, now I understand what my parents. And then they're like, damn, I was torturing my fucking father or my mother and father, whatever, for years because I just was like, why did you leave? Why did this? Why did that? Not understanding. Now, I'm not, it's a whole blurry, everybody's situation is different, but there are plenty of people that tortured their parents because they didn't understand what was going on and because they just couldn't. And there's a lot of things that people torture each other over because they don't have the compassion for what a person was going through. You know, it's the same way as a celebrity who becomes, you know, the financial beacon of light in their universe. And everybody around them is looking at them like they're supposed to do this and that, provide this and this and that. And they'd be like, man, he doesn't do this. He doesn't help this. She ain't doing this. They ain't doing this. But not realizing what that person is dealing with. Like, it's easy to say, well, they're not doing this because it's just easy to say that because you're thinking about what you want. But that person could be dealing with shit you'll never understand. So it's a fascinating thing. Anyways, I went to the side. So the point I was making, I drifted. What I was getting at with The Godfather was as your level of awareness raises, these certain things that you look at, like you mentioned the Bible, the man that Sam Dever is today, with his wisdom and everything you've read in the last year, just added to whatever you went through since the past 10 years of just being a human. But just even the past year and a half, 2 years of what you've read, you looking at the Bible again, you're coming to it with more depth and understanding. So everything is gonna hit different, right? So it's like, that's how I feel about, you know, The Godfather or any spiritual book that I've read. And we need to look at these things because it's like this. Everything that you look at new, you have to familiarize yourself with it and adapt to it. But the things you've been looking at for 10, 20, whatever, 30 years, like, you've been looking at them for so long, you have a relationship with them. You're kind of already inside them. And if they're really rich like that, like the greatest films, the greatest albums, the greatest paintings, the greatest books, the greatest speeches, the greatest performances. If I watch, as an actor too, when I watch Scarface, right? Let's just go to Scarface because Scarface, you know, arguably, I like to make the point that a lot of people don't make is screen time. Al Pacino's screen time in that movie. It's like, name a movie where the main star is on the screen as much as that. Like, it's like it's like there's like a minute and a half of the whole movie that he's not on the screen. Like
I never thought of that before. You're totally right.
You feel me? It's like you're looking at his. I mean, like as great as Daniel Day-Lewis's "There Will Be Blood," which I think is one of the few movies that you can compare the performance level to. He's not on screen quite as much as Al Pacino was in Scarface. I mean, that shit is Al Pacino's face for 2.5 hours, and for him to just be that flawless all the way through, like you're watching it. And me observing these things now, and as an actor having, acting school and all that stuff, looking at the stuff, and I watch it now, it's like the subtleties that like I didn't notice even 5 years ago, I'm noticing. Now, if I watch a new movie, I don't have as much of a look inside it. I mean, it's almost like, I'm not going to exaggerate and say it's like it's transparent, but I've seen the movie so many times. It's like when I watch Goodfellas, I've seen that movie so many times. The editing of the music and narration, which I think has no equal. The music and the editing and the narration of Goodfellas. So when you like. I know the timing of the sound of the freight train coming in with the song, the volume of this freight train noise, and the song comes in. Like it's like I'm so inside of it because I've seen it. I've been studying it for so long, and that's what the Bible, these other books are. These certain things, and we need to review these master works. These perfect things, because our understanding of everything, as it expands, we can look at these things because we know them so well and we can see them better. It's like you need something to work on that you like. It's almost like with the kung fu guys that have the wooden things that they hit. And they hit the arms. It's like they work out their shit on the same thing because they perfect it. It's the same. It's funny. Look at it. Like, this is my little thing they hold my phone with. Like, like they do the thing. They do the thing. It's kind of like the same analogy. Like you need something to work on, like to develop on. Because if every day you're punching a new bag, a new thing, you're not going to be able to master that the same way. The same way if all you do is just listen to new music. If you don't, like if I listen to, as a music guy, if I listen to Thriller right now, right? Or Dr. Dre, The Chronic, or the first Wu-Tang album, I've been listening to it for so long, it's like I'm inside it. I can hear things that I couldn't hear back then because I've been listening to it for so long, and it's just like the littlest things that I don't give a damn when anybody says you're not going to hear it that way, fresh ears, because you're still processing this massive thing. But once you've been processing it for so long. So anyways, I think that's a key thing that people need to take more into their ways and actions to be able to understand things.
Yeah, man, you make so many good points about. What did it remind me? Like, his name's Naval Ravikant. If you've never listened to some of his, I can send you some links to the podcast he's been on. Like this dude, like totally Naval Ravikant.
Oh, Naval, yeah.
Naval?
I had a funny Twitter exchange with him one time.
The dude, I saw him on Rogan, and then I just went on a rabbit hole of going and Tim Ferriss and all this stuff. The guy, it's one of those rare people, like of someone I don't know, that really like inspired me. And for me, it was like what he said about like book reading and stuff like that. He's like, look, you can spend your whole life reading every book there is, or you can take the top 100 books and read them over and over again.
Exactly.
That's what it reminds me of what you were saying. And that's what I've started to do. And your book is one of those books. I've already started rereading it because I'm like, all right, this made the team. Like this is
Man, you honor me with that, man. That means a lot, bro.
I truly mean it, man. Like I truly mean it. It's like, because these are tools. These are tools. And your book especially, I feel, is a great tool to navigate life with. And just some other, I mean, we've already hit the hour mark, but if we could maybe go over a couple more.
I have plenty of time.
Yeah. the one part you put about, by the way, I'm definitely going to be bumping some music tomorrow, looking for new things. And you're exactly right about that. I guess I tend to listen to the same stuff over and over again. For example, I will plug a song of yours I heard for the first time today and listened to it probably 30 to 40 times. Beats.
Ooh. Oh, the classic. Yeah, I'm going to re-release Beads very soon. But yeah, man, classic. You know, man.
But it grabbed me, man. It grabbed me. It just grabbed me. And I'm just like, whoa. And I think I heard Pharrell say this one time. Pharrell said, I love Pharrell. Pharrell said when he would, I don't know, it was some interview he was doing. It might have been the interview he did with Rick Rubin. I can't remember. But like he said, once he like catches a feeling on a song, he'll listen to it like I don't know how many times in a row, like hundreds, just in the car, at home, in the studio, wherever, because something about it grabs you. But you're not gonna like you're talking about, but you're not gonna, you can't capture it all in one listen or in one read. Right. It's like, but you know that you're into it, so it's like, all right, I'm gonna have to take my time with this. I'm gonna have to really process this and bringing in. It really truly does become quality over quantity in this realm.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you say that because you used words, I don't know if he did, but probably when you catch a feeling, like there's a billion songs and there's a lot of songs you hear that are good songs, but you wouldn't say like I caught a feeling. Like you listen to a song, that's a good song, yeah. But then another song comes and you just like, it just does something to you. Like it's like a feeling. It's almost like, it's like when you meet a person that you vibe with and you're like, I like this person. And it could be the guy at the gas station. You know, you could go to the gas station and like the funny older guy that's there, and you just like, it's my guy. And you just immediately like, it's my guy. Like you almost immediately like, you ready to go out with him. Like he's, you know, I could be like a 65-year-old Pakistani dude. He's like favorite dude in the world every time you see him. Like, yo, you know, you go to the hardware store and there's the old man there that this is your guy. Like if I go to the hardware store and that dude's not there, I'll come back because I want to see him. Like I'm that guy. Like I'll be like, oh man, you know, Will isn't here. Oh man, like I'm gonna come back in an hour. Like I got shit to do. I'm gonna go here down the street. I'm gonna hope that he's back when I come back on the way back. Like type shit. Anyways, so songs are very much like that. You know, you feel something, and then when you like something, you wanna. And then, you know, because songs, you have the ability to like, you know, you can control them unlike a person. Like you can be like, I want to hear this again. I mean, you know, so you have the ability to really just like super, you know, get it in how you want to get it in. And it's a beautiful thing, man. And it's the same thing. Like I'm the type person, when I watch movies, I'll rewind certain scenes over. When I read books, if I read a sentence or a paragraph that really lights my brain up, I will stop. If it's really powerful, I might stop and, you know, pour myself some green juice or some shit, sit down and just read it again. Like I get like, I really like take it like I curate the moment. Like I'm gonna really like, let me set up everything. I want to really, that sentence was so good. You know how like you're reading something, and this is particularly like a good example of this is if you're reading like an autobiography and a person begins to tell you a story that's a crazy story. You're like, oh, like, you know, like something that something that like once they first introduce what they're talking about, you know that the next couple paragraphs are going to be like fire. So then it's like, oh, okay, let me take my time with this.
Yeah.
Let me turn the lights down. You got to treat yourself, you know.
Man, I don't. I'm about to. I have to bring it up. You know, I don't know if you ever heard of the book Marcus Aurelius Meditations.
I just finished it 2 weeks ago.
Okay, well, I don't know if we read the same translation, but what to your point, there was a paragraph, many obviously in that book. Like we're all gonna die. You don't have much time. Make the most of it, present moment, all that great stuff. But he had a paragraph when it came to like lust. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, the next time you find yourself chasing sex or chasing, like throwing all your energy in just to have sex, remind yourself of what it actually is. It's simply this mechanism of you rubbing your genitals
Yeah.
until you have a seizure for 7 seconds and a white liquid comes out and it's over. Dude, I'm not kidding. I stopped in my tracks.
Yeah. Heavy. And to think how many people have plunged off the edge of the bottomless cliff into the fiery pits of Mordor behind that, looking for that. Like it's really funny. But what's deep about that too is that's one of those, it's like discipline. It's like you almost wish you could just pop back through time and be like, yeah, but Marcus, you done had some moments out there, Playboy. You done crept up on some things. Like, come on, man. But what's beautiful is he's right. You know what I mean? Like so many people, once again, people's lives, fortunes, business, people, having sex with their sister's husband on the wedding day, and like people are crazy, like people are nuts. Sex is a wild thing, and it's so deeply. I think ultimately, some people are better in control of their emotions and their desires, and like some people really just let it go, and they get turned on by the adrenaline. They feel like rock stars when they just go for it. You know what I mean? And me personally, like that type of stuff, I just see it as being so dangerous. I mean, I'm no square. I've definitely, experienced my share of exciting, decision making, but I've I've never been one to, miss the point. Like there's the cliff, there's the fire, go that way. You know what I mean? Like get away from the fiery cliffs. You know what I mean? Like, because some people, it's like, man, wars and nations and all that stuff. It's really fascinating.
The movie Troy. It was all over a chick, man.
It's really amazing how many musical groups brought down behind stuff like that. How many it's fascinating. And I was watching on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, anyways. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting stuff. But yeah, no, that book, that's an incredible book. And one of the things I'll say, this is a great thing to bring up, because I was having this conversation with a friend earlier. I've really realized this year that every great thinker that I know personally, or that I've read or heard give speech, every single one of them without fail is completely full of shit in at least one area, right? Or with one thing, I should say. Maybe not a whole area, but like one thing. And I was thinking about it, like to be a bold thinker, to be, you have to have a lot of heart, a lot of guts, and you're going for it. And it seems that there's always, it's like gambling, you're not always going to win. You're not always going to be, it's like fighting. You're eventually, any real fighter at some point got beat up. There's no fighter that's worth mentioning that never lost a fight. It just doesn't, there's no athlete that never lost a game when the game-winning shot was in his hand. Whether it was a golf club, whether it's throwing, catching, shooting, whatever it is, baseball. So I was thinking like that with thinkers. And so there were a couple things in Marcus's book that I was like, granted, it's a translation, but there are a couple things that I was like, yeah, I don't really agree with that. But then I was like, but you know what? I don't agree with something that all of the greatest thinkers. And I think it's part of the balance of the universe. Like imagine if there was somebody who, there was a person that actually a person, not a mythological or religious deity, but just like an actual a person that like everything they said, there was not one thing that was wrong. It wouldn't make sense, because it's almost like we need that balance to show us that we are imperfect, but also that when you see a person you admire so greatly wrong, it shows you that you too, because you're wrong about things, so you can be just as great. So I think about that a lot. And that's really helped me make peace with some of the things, some of the greatest people that I admire have said or done. And I'm like, what was he thinking? Is that who hasn't made that mistake? I mean, I know some brilliant individuals and 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 then one day they say something to you that's so out of pocket. You're just like, the fuck? Like, and I just feel like there's a certain balance to it. Like I honestly think, because I believe in balance in the universe. I believe that things are grander than we know, and certain things like that are to keep things balanced. You know what I mean? Like, and that's a heavy subject, because you can keep going on, and it gets very delicate matters, but I just leave it at that.
Yeah, well, you remind me, in your book, you talked about how, some people idolize their favorite athlete or celebrity, and, that doesn't make them a good person. You know what I mean? But we're just so fascinated with fame, and especially in the social media culture and all this. And as you're talking, it reminds me of this Ralph Waldo Emerson book. I believe that was the book. He said something along the lines like, don't put people on too big of pedestals from the past history as well. Because, like, look, these people lived on the same earth, breathed the same air as you do. And I'll go back to Meditations. Marcus Aurelius says something like, look, take the richest person in the world, take the poorest person. Guess what? You guys both have the same exact thing of equal value, and that's called the present moment. It's like,
we all get the same 24 hours a day.
Yeah. So I feel you too when you're saying, like, all right, Marcus, like, you were like very successful. Don't tell me you didn't get it in once in a while, because we know you did. But it's like, right. It's a balance though, right? Like you said, it's like, I want to enjoy this life and stay present and what's the point? Like, I tend to overcalculate too much. Like, well, I can't do that because that might lead to this. It's like, you know what, man, sometimes you need to jump in. But like you said too, though, there's some things that are, no, that building is on fire, don't go in.
Right.
But then some of the top CEOs, top athletes that are, and you name it, people fall victim to that fire. And you're just like, how could you I don't get it. Weren't you thinking? It's just, you know what I mean? So it's like, we're all human.
And it's amazing how certain people, could thrive so well in one or two particular areas. And then, another area, they just constant folly after like irreparable damage moment, and you're just like, yeesh. And then people are looking at them and making their judgments, and which is a human thing. And they tell us not to judge people, but I say it's not about not judging, it's about not casting judgment. There's a difference. Like, you have to judge when you're walking where you're going to walk, so you don't step on a pile of dog stuff. But at the same time, you don't step on a nails. Walk off the cliff in the fire. You have to judge when you're talking to somebody if this person seems dangerous or cool. You have to make a lot of judgments, but you don't judge people like to pass a sentence over them and determine and lay something on them that's not your position to lay on them. So it's an interesting balance to like not be too heavy-handed with what you've deduced of the person or situation you're dealing with, because you also want to keep an open mind, because people can surprise you. People can change. You know what I mean? That's a great mistake that we deal with, is so many people are just holding you to who you were, who they remember you as, what they've seen you in the past. And that's why one of the chapters of my book is acknowledge a person's level up. And I chose to title it that way, acknowledge a person's level up. Like, people are out here leveling up. And if you act like they're not, you're doing several things. One of the things you're doing is you're just not, like, if you don't know somebody, I'm not saying you have to walk to somebody you don't know and say, hey man, I never met you before, but I want you to know I've noticed that you done something. You don't have to do that. But people you know in your life, people work really hard to like raise themselves spiritually, in their career, financially, whatever other ways, their health, so people working hard to get their bodies together, whatever they're doing. And when you acknowledge that, it's not even just about, because see, the simple way of looking at it is, oh, you're just acknowledging, you're being nice. But actually not. Like, I mean, you are, but that's like, whatever. It's more to me about like you're actually participating in and celebrating the accomplishment and the energy of bettering yourself. So on an energetic level, you're kind of like, for lack of a better word, you're almost like bathing in that vibration and that energy, as opposed to just sitting back like, whatever. So what? He finally got his money together. Great. He's got a nice car now. Oh, great. He's successful now. Oh, he was in a movie. Oh, great. He did great. Oh, his restaurants really hitting it. Oh, great. Whatever. You can do that all day, but you could be like, man, that's amazing, man. Hey, man, you're doing well. You've elevated. You're like, you're that much closer to it. That's how I feel. It's like if I listen to Michael Jackson or Earth, Wind and Fire, and I'm like, I'm in that vibration. So if a friend of mine just got a part in a movie, or just whatever, they just made $100,000 off some cryptocurrency or some shit, I'm like, man, that's what I'm talking about. That's what you're in that energy, and I feel like that's better than sitting around acting like to it. You know what I mean? So that's why I feel like acknowledging, and also too, you just like, I mean, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I sort of go out of my way. I'm gonna share something with you. I try to keep the subject of karma to a minimal, just because some people are for it, some people are against it. It's not that it's like particularly like a, contentious issue like that or nothing, but it's just kind of like, some people don't believe in it, and I feel like it doesn't always need to be brought to that, but I choose to bring it to that right now. It's good karma to be like supportive and to try to like feel like from a sincere place. Like, man, like, yo, I remember when you were out here working 15 odd jobs and struggling. Now you over here like really doing your shit, man. I'm happy for you. Like, I think about that. I think about when I got the part in the movie that I was in, and the people that came to me with like a sincere enthusiasm versus the people that were like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a certain energy, man. It's like people should whenever you can, it's like tap into the golden energy that lifts people to higher places. That's how I look at it, just in general. Any way you can tap into that, because the other energy is some bullshit. The whatever energy is not the energy that's going to be sitting there with a child smiling at you in the future while you're married to your love, and you're picking which villa you want to stay in for your 2 weeks off in the island of your choice. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what that is. And that's why you smile, because we think like that's what you want. So, that's the type of shit that people need to be focused on.
Well, I'm adding on to that, just
Please.
Being where we're at here in LA, I know we both have actor friends. It's like when I see someone land a part, especially ones that I had been in class with or just know, because like you said, someone put this in one of the podcasts. They said LA's the end point for a lot of people. It's the end game. Like they gave up everything to come here. I know someone who moved here from another country, and I'll never forget having the conversation with him. I'm like, oh, you're gonna fly back home anytime soon? He's like, oh, I haven't been home in blah blah years because I'm saving my money for my SAG card. And it's like it just kind of was one of those like, oh wow, like yeah, no, like some people like give up everything. So when I see these people now landing commercials or they get a part in a movie or something, it's like, man, like heck yeah. It's like awesome. And same thing with like people losing weight and like taking care of their fitness. When I see them like really on IG or something, like I just lost blah 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 pounds. I'm like I always try to like, hey
Absolutely.
man, that's awesome, like, and give recognition. And I think that's a brilliant observation you bring up. It is important to, because even when people like as dedicated they are and as hard as they work, I had this talk with an actor friend the other day, and she's killing it right now. But I had told her, I'm like, hey, you're killing it right now, and she's like, you know what? Thank you for saying that, because she's like, the mind, it messes with you, man. Like, and sometimes you just need that like little someone just to like, hey, like, I see you, you're doing good, like, get out of your head, you're doing fine, keep working hard, type of thing. So I'm glad that you recognize.
Yeah, no, and it's real, because it's like you help all parties involved. You're supporting a person, you're giving them like acknowledgement, because man, you know, some people, they like to act like they, you know, but there's very, 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 very few people who aren't to some degree doing anything, you know, striving to achieve things for some form of, you know, we're social animals. We're social creatures. Like we want to be appreciated for what we do, regardless of whether it's an entertainment or a person, you know, a guy or girl, whatever, that you know, did 8 years in medical school, and now they got their, you know, they got their small practice, and now they've started to generate clients, and now they're starting to do well, and now they be able to move from an apartment to and now they're here, and then next thing you know, they're like, people work hard, man. So, you know, and don't do a lot of things that they could do, make a lot of sacrifice for these things. So it's important, I think, that we acknowledge people, because it helps people. And it's like it takes 10 seconds to say something like that, less than that, and what it can mean for somebody. I mean, most of us are walking around remembering things that people said to us. Like, there's things that people said to me that like are like talismans around my soul when I have my most difficult times. Like, I think about, this person said it to me, and that shit meant everything to me. And it's like, it gives me like a guiding light, like, you know, was it when things grew the most dark? You know, Lord of the Rings. It's like a word somebody said. It's like something you know, that lights when you need it. And so, but then the flip side of it is your soul, the highest version of you. Because if you want that, then you should be able, you should honor it wherever you see it. If you want, like, if I see a couple that's just killing it, like this, you know, and I'm not talking about like success, I'm talking about like financial or career success. You know, you see couples and they just their shit is dope. Like, you can see that they just have a great chemistry in the way they move. It doesn't matter like whether they're, you know, their shit is fly or basic, but you can just tell that they really have the magic between them. Because there are couples that are sitting on yachts and it's trash, you know what I mean? And then there's couples that are sitting, you know, in a pissy mattress, but they're golden. Like, when you see the magic between a couple, like, I'm the type of guy a lot of times, like, you know, I try to, you know, if I see a couple walking on the street, you got to be careful, because some guys ain't having it. You know what I mean? What? You know, they think you're like being funny. So you can't just like, I just want to tell you, y'all are beautiful. But there are times when you can. And when you do that, like I'll give you an example. If I see a couple walking and they both like are just immaculately dressed, and they're looking like they're just happy. And I'm walking by, I could be at the Grove or something, and I could walk by, I could be like, man, y'all are doing it. Just something as simple as that, and they can detect the sincerity. Man, people be like, thank you, man. We've been waiting to hear that. Like, you could, like, this one guy, I forget what he said, but he said something like, it was just whatever he said, I won't remember, but it was kind of like a way of saying thank you for like we out here, man. Like, thank you for like, we're just because, and I remember thinking, I was like, yeah, when you walk in, like some people see you, but not everybody's gonna say something like that. And it's almost like they're contained and they're happy with themselves, but it's nice to know that it's like I was the mirror of the city at that moment. Like they have their mirror at the house, but I was like the mirror of Los Angeles. Like, I just want you to know that LA is seeing y'all and y'all are fresh. And they really appreciate it. So it's like, I feel like, when you do that, that's better than just walking by them. Because I've been the guy before, salty, like, man, I wish I had a girl, man.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, no, and there's been times where, and dude, here's the thing too, like when, especially like people I've had dialogue with, man or woman, and sometimes it's people, even women that I've gone on dates with before, but maybe that romantic vibe wasn't there, but we're cool as friends. And then I see them get into a serious thing. Like, dude, I'm ecstatic for them because I know they're a great person and they deserve that. So it's just good to be in those vibes. And this whole section here reminds me of a quote I love. It's treat everybody like they're a somebody, or make everybody feel like they're a somebody.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter if it's the billionaire person over here or the person on the street over here. It's, hey man, like,
absolutely,
everyone's human. Everyone deserves some happiness. Like,
yeah, and man, people, we never really, what's funny is when people like say those things, you never know what somebody's going through. It's so real. And it's not always as, see, this gets back to the whole thing of thinking things through. Some people hear that and they only can take it so far as, a person has a drug addiction, or a person is dealing with abuse, or a person has a dying family member, or a person has, something crazy going on. Like, they're just things people dealing with anguish in the mind. Like, just that some people just have weird things going on in their head that's like difficult. They might be healthy, everybody in their family is healthy, this and that, but they just dealing with some like thoughts that are difficult that somebody might be insensitive to. Like, man, you over here worried about some more, even depression. You got people that are walking around with clinical depression, and because they have on, Balenciaga, and they're eating superfoods, and they're, Uber blacking it. They're using Uber Black everywhere, or they have a nice car. People just completely act like they're just the luckiest person in the world, and they could not be suffering in any way. And there are people that just have, we're complicated, man. So it's like, and that's another component of smooth sailing. If you're walking around thinking you know what everybody's going through, and you're making judgment of people, and you're alienating yourself from people, drawing these divisive lines between you and people based off an assumption, you're playing yourself, because you never know who's gonna, like in my book, I referenced the guy in the Yoshinoya, the guy in the bushes of Yoshinoya, because I used to eat Yoshinoya back in piece of Yoshinoya, but I'm just not the fast food guy anymore. And I was gonna say, I used to go there, and there was this dude, and I was eating there probably for a period of like maybe, I don't know, a year on and off, something like that. And there was always this one dude in the bushes there, and and it was like a small, like little curve around the drive-through. So it was like maybe, I don't know, 6 feet by like 4 feet, like a little area. And they had like the little hedges that were trimmed. And he was like behind the hedges. So he was like in this little island almost. And he's behind him, and he had all this shit back there, like behind the bushes. And I was like, damn. And I remember just one day thinking to myself, like, I bet you he knows a lot about something. it just hit me one day. I was like, there's got to be something that he knows. There's something that if I knew what to ask him about, he would probably pop up and be like, oh, like maybe he knows everything about, the Dodgers in the 80s. Or maybe he knows a lot about German leather manufacturing. You never know. Like people just know whatever they know. And hard times befell him and he's dealing with it. But I just remember thinking like, you never know what a person has to offer, So you have to make decisions. Some people you have to like leave them alone for whatever reasons. I'm not saying I was trying to go get down there in the bushes with him and cuddle or nothing. I'm just saying like, I don't want to you don't want to discount anybody like that just because of whatever reason. And, anyways, I'm rambling right now.
Yeah, no, it's all related to the book. And one last, I mean, we could do 10 segments on your book, and there's so many things I want to bring up. But one last thing I did want to bring up from the book that we were talking a little about in the pre-show, communication and the words you choose. And you discussed, and there's a couple different sections of the book, and one in particular where you're talking, I'm paraphrasing you, but if you're always responding to people with okay or yeah or just simple stuff, and you're not really, when it comes time for you to really have to be articulate and explain things, it's almost like, if you're not in the gym shooting your free throws, and then when the game's on the line and you get put on the free throw line, you probably should have been in the gym shooting those free throws, So could you elaborate a little bit on what you mean by like communication?
So, and you just said it so well, but yeah. To all the wonderful people of the world that you send them a really nicely worded text with some fly color, and then they respond, okay. Now I understand that sometimes to function and for efficiency, you have to say okay. Like, especially if it's time sensitive. But sometimes I feel like I know certain people who will hit you with okay, like as a confirmative when you're like asking questions and stuff like that, or I'm gonna come see you, okay, fine, or whatever, something like that. But I'm on my way now, okay. But some people just really, and they don't like the text, and I get it. Look, I like to write. I like to speak. I make no, I'm long-winded. You know what I mean? It's some people that love it. It's a gift to some people that don't like it. It can be annoying, but that's me. I feel though, like to the point that you brought up that I mentioned in my book is like, at the end of the day, you gotta be ready for certain things, and practice makes perfect. So if you don't practice expressing yourself, and articulating your concerns, your thoughts, your desires, your whatever, then when you need to, and it's called upon you to do so, you're going to be a little bit rusty. And the one thing that is constant, it doesn't matter what you do, who you are, man, woman, child, whatever race, whatever age, you have to communicate with people. And, doesn't matter what profession you're in, being able to express yourself well is like the realest thing that you can, invest your energy into after, like, just, drinking water and not, you know what I mean? Like it's the most basic thing. Like it's the, you have to sleep, you have to eat and drink water. And then, but then you could say, okay, I want to make sure I eat good food. Point is practicing and developing your ability to speak properly is so crucial. And so that goes down to even like text messaging, because you're formulating your thoughts, and it goes down like people that I've had, it's like dating. There are people that don't they don't want to talk. And then it's like, well, if you don't want to talk and you just want to text, then what's going to happen if you like this person? Like, because even if you say like, okay, you don't really want to talk, you want to text because you're not sure. But then when you like talking is, it's not like, oh, okay, I'm just not going to talk to anybody until I find somebody that I think I like, then I'll talk to them. Guess what? You haven't been talking all this time. So now you're like trying to figure out how to talk. So how's your mom? So what's up? How you been? Like, there's more, there's more to it than those things. So I just feel like people need to appreciate the value of developing their communication in every way. Because I mean, man, like I remember being 15 and ordering food. First job I had, and I remember ordering some food and getting the food, like the food was brought to where I was working at the time, and the food was brought to me, and I had like, had like a 20-minute lunch break or something, right? And it was made incorrectly. So like it had cheese in it. I'm lactose intolerant. So I went over to the place because it was like right down the street. And I walked in and I was like, can I speak to the manager? Yeah. And I explained to the manager, I was like, look, man, I only have 20 minutes for my break. Even if you tell me now you're going to remake this for me and make it perfectly, even if you give me my money back, like I won't have time to eat it. I have to now return back to my shift. I'm hungry, blah, 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 blah. I explained it. The guy sitting there listening to me, I'm like 16. He's like, you want a job here? And I was like, huh? He's like, I like the way you express yourself. I like the way you speak. Would you like a job here? And I was like, nah. But he ended up giving me my food money, whatever. But it was like, I just bring it up. Like the guy offered me a job because I was able to express myself well. And he has employees that really can't do that. It's like being able to speak. People want to do things with you when you can speak. So it's like people don't realize what that stuff is. And I mean, when I say what that stuff is, like it's funny. People don't get what that stuff is. It's almost like against everything I was just saying. But that's my slang. Like people don't. I mean, not my slang, but that's like my way of speaking. So it's like people don't understand the value of what that really means, and the value. I'm getting a little. People don't understand the value of what that of that. Excuse me. Boom. People don't like put my foot in my mouth. People don't really understand the value of that. See, I know how to speak. I could fix what I was trying to say. I had to whittle it down to what it really means. I was getting caught up in overwordiness. People don't understand the value of that. Being able to express yourself clearly and concisely is everything. And people want to be around people like that. They ask people like that into things. They invite things like that. So, but yeah, to the main point, you have to develop it. It's a daily, what is it? I pledge myself, each day I pledge myself anew. You know what I mean? It's like, that's why you and I get along because, there's a certain importance. It's like, you're talking to people that, you could be talking to somebody. I was talking to somebody not that long ago and we had a disagreement and I said to them what they said and I know exactly what they said. Like it's not confusion. And I was just mentioning them what they said and they tried to act like I was trying to say some other stuff. I'm like, that's what you said though. Like you said that. And now you're trying to like spin it on me a certain way to win an argument, which is what you're trying to do. But none of that has anything to do with what was actually said. So it's like, and I remember thinking to myself, like, you got to be on point with what you say. You got to listen to what you say. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to watch this back and I'm going to hope that I didn't say anything that I missed saying. There was one word I'm not going to say that I remember saying. Words, there's certain words that you like have a working understanding of, and you're like, I think I've used that word right, because you get in the spirit of saying words because you're getting bolder and you're getting more like free. I want to use that word. and I'm gonna use it. You say it, you're like, yeah, that felt right. And then maybe later you're like, I don't know if I used it quite right. But sometimes you gotta go for it. You gotta live a little. So yeah, it's important, man. Communication, because communication is everything. I mean, communication is magic. You can talk yourself in to a fortune, and you can talk yourself out of, the pits of hell. I mean, there are people that have, like, it's amazing what you can do with your communication. Presidents, all that stuff is this.
Oh,
It ain't nothing more than that. It's nothing more than that. You know what I mean? Like, it's literally that. Like, the songwriters, producers, all that stuff. It's, having that, being able to put it together and being able to, like, to say what you have to say to it's a beautiful thing. So yeah, I think that's the great love of my life is words, man, because it's just so beautiful, man. It's amazing the things that we can create with our words.
Yeah. Well, and with your words, you've created, in my opinion, a masterpiece. Smooth Sailing for Hard Rocks. We're going to have to do something again here sometime, because you and I can definitely go. There's, even with what you just said, there's about 20 things I want to add on to that. But, we've hit about that time. And if people want to get your book, Chris, Smooth Sailing for Hard Rocks, how do they get a hold of a copy? How do they purchase a copy?
All right. So currently, they have to holler at me directly via Instagram or Twitter, Facebook, or whatever. How you find me? I might be at a Whole Foods somewhere buying some sardines, whatever. But we're in the process of setting things up for an official launch in 2022. You know what I mean? So that's, I'm not going to speak too much on that right now, but things are being set up. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what's going on with that. But as for right now, I have physical copies, and they have to get at me directly. It's not available online or any bookstores. I mean, online, and other than, reaching out to me directly. I have Smooth Sailing for Hard Rocks Instagram page. I have my own Chris Clarke Instagram page, and I have a Smooth Sailing for Hard Rocks Facebook page. So just it's just, it's still, but like the official launch will be in 2022. But in the meantime, holler at me and get one of these initial, copies. That's a rare one, like what you got over there.
Oh yeah, I got the first round one here. This is
Right, first.
This is great. Well, I'm definitely, when that the launch happens and it's available on other platforms, I'm definitely going to have to grab copies for gifts for people.
Oh, bro,
like this book right here, Anthony DeMello Awareness. Like I hand that out like a missionary does Bibles at an airport. Like it's like when I come across something, I'm like, oh, dude, people need to read this. This is definitely going to be one where I'm going to want some copies to like hand out to people.
Brother.
Yeah, man.
It means a lot, bro. That really means a lot. The choices that you make of books. I've been following your book club for a while, and the choices, your literary selections are nothing short of impressive, brilliant, timeless work. So to be compared to those, it's really an honor, bro. I really appreciate it, man.
Oh man, awesome. No, my pleasure. And thank you so much for taking the time here. And I always give the guests the last word. I know we've covered a lot of stuff, but it can be anything. It can be in relation to the book. It can be something you've just been thinking about lately. It can be a movie you saw. What do you want to leave us with?
Here's because I could go so long. I got one. I would like to speak directly to whoever's listening to this, watching this, has heard this. And I just want to present an idea. Just imagine if what he said, what Sam said, is true. If the book that we've been talking about is a masterpiece, is really filled with that level of valuable jewels. Just imagine that. Like, imagine that. And, you know, as we hear about a lot of things. We hear about a lot of people's books, people's songs, people's movies, people's podcasts, people's businesses, people's things. And we're supportive people. And sometimes it's easy to think that somebody would say something extra about something that somebody they know created to support them. But Sam is not going to compare any book to those master works that he compared Smooth Sailing for Hard Rocks to, because he knows you don't compare, you know, the Laffy Taffy song to Bob Marley, you know, No Woman, No Cry. You don't do that. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there for y'all. Just imagine if everything that was said was here is true and the book is a masterpiece. Just imagine that. So imagination is what furthers the planet. Imagination is we're all here. This is imagination, man. You have to have imagination to create things like this and to help people be better. Imagination. So just imagine that Smooth Sailing for Hard Rocks is a masterpiece, and make your decision on that and make your decision based on that. And that's just what I want to share, because I agree with everything that Sam has said. And I look forward to more conversation with him in the future. I have a plan to interview certain individuals about certain aspects of my book. And Sam is definitely one of the people. So me and Sam are going to be rocking. That's coming. But yeah, just imagine that the book is everything that you've heard it has been today. And check it out. That's what I want to leave the people with.
You just demonstrated perfectly your great use of communication. Oh, yeah. Well, Chris, thank you so much. Stick around for a minute after I stop the recording. But, man, so great to connect with you. So great. Again, Smooth Sailing for Hard Rocks. For right now, holler at him directly. Look out for the launch. We'll put the links to Chris's info to holler at him. There it is right there.
Yes.
In the show notes. So, Chris, I will be talking and hopefully seeing you soon, my friend. Thanks again.
Absolutely, King. Good to be with you. Appreciate you again, man.
Absolutely. Take care.
Peace.
Peace.